We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, text 18, text 18. Okay. Everyone has it? Parham Parham Vaishnavamanantita Yanheti Neti Tyatarutsikritsavaha Visridyadoratmyamananya Sohridha Hrido Bhago Hyarhapadham Pare Pare Parham Parham Vaishnavam Atmanantita Yanheti Neti Tyatarutsikritsavaha Visridyadoratmyamananya Sohridha Hrido Bhago Hyarhapadham Pare Parham Parham Vaishnavam Amanantita Yanheti Neti Tyatarutsikritsavaha Visridyadoratmyamananya Sohridha Hrido Bhago Hyarhapadham Pare
Param Padam Vaishnavam Amanantitat Yaneti Neti Tyatarutsikritsavaha Visrijya Dauratmyam Ananya Sohridam
Visrijya Dauratmyam Ananya Sohridam
Hridopaguhyarha Padam Pade Pade
Hridopaguhyarha
Padam Pade Pade Param Padam Vaishnavamanantita
Param Vaishnavamanantita
Yanneti Neti Yatarutsis-Rikshavaha
Yanheti Neti Yatarutsis-Rikshavaha
Visrijya Dauryatmamananya Sohrida
Visrijya Dauryatmyam Ananya Sohrida
Hridopaguhyarha Padam Pade Pade
Hridopaguhyarha Padam Pade Pade Param, the Supreme. Padam, situation. Vaishnavam, in relation with the personality of Godhead. Amananti, do they know? Tat, that. Yet, which? Na iti, not this. Na iti, not this. Iti, thus. Atat, godless. Utsisrikshavaha, those who desire to avoid. Visrijya, giving it up completely. Dauratmyam, perplexities. Ananya, absolutely. Sohrida, in goodwill. Hrida upaguhya, taking them into his heart. Arha, that which is only worshipable. Padam, lotus feet. Pare, at every moment. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Transcendentalists desired to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Madhama, my abode, is mentioned several times, and according to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, there exists. According to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, there exists the unlimited spiritual sky, wherein the planets are called Vaikunthas, or the abode of the Personality of Godhead. In that sky, which is far, far beyond the material sky in its sevenfold coverings, there is no need of the sun or the moon, nor is there necessity of electricity for illumination, because the planets are self-illuminating and more brilliant than the material suns. Pure devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the Personality of Godhead. Or in other words, they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They do not care for any mundane creature, up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can definitely have a clear vision of the Vaikuntha planets. Such pure devotees, being perfectly directed by the Supreme Lord, do not create any artificial perplexity in the matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman and what is non-Brahman, or Maya, nor do they falsely think of themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories, which are in actuality so many stumbling blocks on the path of transcendental understanding. Apart from the class of impersonalists, or non-devotees, there are also classes who pose themselves as devotees of the Lord, but at heart maintain the idea of salvation by becoming one with the impersonal Brahman. They wrongly manufacture their own way of devotional service by open debauchery and mislead others who are simpletons or debauchees like themselves. All these non-devotees and debauchees are, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, duratmas, or crooked souls in the dress of mahatmas, or great souls. Such non-devotees and debauchees are completely excluded from the list of transcendentalists by the presentation of this particular verse by Shukadeva Goswami. So the Vaikuntha planets are factually the supreme residential places called the Param. The impersonal Brahma Jyoti is also called the Param due to its being the rays of the Vaikuntha planets, as the sun rays are the rays of the sun. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, it is clearly said that the impersonal Brahma Jyoti rests on the person of the Lord. And because everything rests on the Brahma Jyoti directly and indirectly, everything is generated from the Lord. Everything rests on him. And after annihilation, everything is merged in him only. Therefore, nothing is independent of him. A pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time in discriminating the Brahman from non-Brahman, because he knows perfectly well that the Lord Para-Brahman, by his Brahman energy, is interwoven in everything. And thus everything is looked upon by a devotee as the property of the Lord. The devotee tries to engage everything in his service, and does not create perplexities by falsely lording it over the creation of the Lord. He is so faithful that he engages himself, as well as everything else, in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In everything the devotee sees the Lord, and he sees everything in the Lord. The specific disturbance created by a duratma, or crooked soul, is due to his maintaining that the transcendental form of the Lord is something material. Om Jnana-Tinandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swavarantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Savitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Payan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Sa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Devi Kriya Rosha Kapaturidyascha Kripa Sangiveva Patitam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavali Pashyati Shitarim Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gauravani Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Although you already know all of this, I can't teach you anything, so thank you for allowing me anyways. So I'll just repeat the verse. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. And so Srila Prabhupada begins his purport by speaking of spiritual existence, the abode of the Lord, what Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita. Natal basite suryo nasha shanko napavagaha yagatva nalivartante tadama paramamama. That supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or the moon. There's no need of electricity. And once one attains that abode, one never returns to this material world. And so that's what a devotee keeps within his heart as his only aspiration. That this is my goal. People in the world, due to a lack of knowledge about what is actually important, what is valuable, they have so many other diversions and distractions. And some people want to be, rich and famous. Some people want to be, president of the United States. So many different goals, and especially in Kali Yuga, so many perverted kind of goals People want so many crazy things. And ultimately, we understand from the Vedic scriptures, Anandamaya Bhyasyat, that people, ultimately, they just want to be happy. If you ask somebody, okay, why do you want money? They'd say, because I want to, buy things, have nice things. I want to provide for my family. Well, why do you want to have nice things? If you keep asking them why, eventually they'll say it's just because I want to be happy. This is mentioned in the 4 Questions by Shishka Prabhu's book. That once you arrive at that conclusion that actually I just want to be happy because there's no other reason, that I just want to become happy, and that's a spiritual desire, but it's being perverted in this material world. And the living entity is not finding any happiness in this material world, but if he becomes somewhat intelligent and gets a little bit of faith, he can hear Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita talking about what is the supreme happiness, and he can hear about the spiritual existence and become very much enamored by it. And in this regard, he will also develop detachment from this world. And so Prabhupada says that people in devotees, transcendentalists, they're like the swans, which are always in the very pristine lakes with lotus flowers and beautiful scents and sunshine and trees, and the swans just on the glassy water. And swans are very, very beautiful animals. So these are the devotees, and they know the essence of everything. Just like a swan can extract the milk from water. If you mix water and milk, the swan can extract the essence, which is the milk. Similarly, devotees of the Lord who have trained spiritual intelligence, they actually know the essence of this world, what is actually the purpose of this world, how to engage everything in Krishna's service. And we see Srila Prabhupada engaged so much of the material energy in Krishna's service. He engaged money and properties and his disciples and doing so many different things. And one example that comes to mind is when he was looking down on the street and he saw like flatbed trucks, and Prabhupada looked at this and said, actually this is good for Ratha Yatra. We can use, this could be the cart to hold Lord Jagannath. And so Srila Prabhupada was always transcendentally situated, seeing the world through the lens of how can this be used in Krishna's service. Similarly, there's one paint company which had a billboard with like an image of the earth and then a paint can pouring over the earth, and it said "cover the earth." And Srila Prabhupada made a comment to the driver of the car. This is our goal. This is what we want to do. He didn't explain it, but the devotees knew this is. He meant we want to spread Krishna consciousness all over the earth. So there's one verse in the Rig Veda, a very famous verse, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Pashyanti Suryo Divi Vachakshuvatta Tam Tad Vipraso Vipanaya Vojik Jagrivham Saha Samindade Vishnu Yat Paramam Param. Very, very similar to this Bhagavatam verse. It says that in the same way that the sun's rays in the sky are extended to the mundane vision, so in the same way the wise and learned devotees always see the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. We can always see the sun in the sky. Even when it's cloudy, we can still see sunlight is coming through. And in the same way, the devotees of Krishna who are beyond the material modes of ignorance, they can see Krishna always. They can understand that Krishna is always present, and similarly, they can they can understand the fact that Krishna is not different from his holy name. You know, it's inconceivable to us how Krishna is not different from his holy name, but devotees can actually understand that. And even those who are, you know, practicing devotees who are, you know, struggling with their mind and senses, they can also learn how to see Krishna at all times. Krishna guides them. It says that, you know, I am the light of the sun and the moon, I am the taste of water, you know, I am the sound and ether, ability and man. So if you just train your intelligence that when you come in contact with these things, if one thinks that when he's drinking water that this is the taste of Krishna, one is being trained to see Krishna in all ways and places. So, and it's very interesting that actually spiritual reality, we understand Krishna is in every atom, you know. He's all pervasive through his energies. And so Krishna is very, very close to us, but he's also very far away. In Sri Upanishad it says, Tadure Tadvantike, that Krishna is very close, but he's also very far away. And similarly, Krishna he's right next to us in the heart. He's right next to the individual living entity, but we cannot see him. And it's kind of like if I were to, you know, put the book like right in front of my eyes like this, I cannot see, I cannot read, I can't even know it's a book really. You know, if I close my eyes and somebody puts something here and I open them, I don't know what it is. I can't see it. So similarly, you know, spiritual reality is like so close to us. It's almost so close that we just can't, you know, we can't see it due to our kind of, you know, false ego and understanding of, you know, being materially conditioned. And so here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he talks about how yeah, devotees, they have a very clear vision of the Vaikuntha planets, and they don't create any artificial perplexity. In other words, they don't waste their time discussing philosophical kind of, I guess, kind of dry speculation, you know, arguing, you know, this is spiritual, this is material, this kind of neti process that many kind of jnanis and impersonalists engage in. That the absolute truth is not, you know, it's not this, it's not that, and then they kind of have to deny everything, and eventually they'll come to whatever it is, but that they don't say. They just say what it is not. But you can see that all throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam and all throughout the discussions of devotees, they're always speaking about what is the absolute truth. Actually, it is Krishna. And they're always engaged in speaking about the glories of Krishna, speaking his pastimes, speaking about the glories of his devotees. So it always, substance is there. People, in the 15th chapter, Krishna begins by talking about the shadowy reflection of the tree of the material world, how the real substance of reality is the spiritual world, and then that becomes reflected into this material world. So what we are seeing is actually just a reflection. And many people will waste their time by, you know, glorifying and beautifying the reflection, thinking it's so beautiful. Actually, this world, there's nothing to see here for the jiva soul, you know. Actually, there is only reflected beauty here. The real beauty is in the spiritual reality. There's nothing here which is beautiful if we see it separately from Krishna. But if we're able to understand its true position, that actually this is a temporary, illusory place where we're meant to kind of rectify our consciousness and understand our true kind of identity, then this road has a lot of meaning if we're able to engage it in Krishna service. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions how that Para Brahman, or that Krishna himself, is interwoven into everything, and so therefore it is immensely valuable. Kind of like there's, I think it's called Otam Protam. It means that Krishna is interwoven just like cloth. You have like horizontal strands and vertical strands. So in that same way, Krishna is interwoven into everything, and nothing is independent from him. And one who imagines something to be independent from Krishna, he is overwhelmed by a sense of fear and anxiety, because he doesn't kind of understand Krishna's hand in those things. when terrible things happen, he might not understand the purpose towards it. And especially when death comes, he's in a great state of anxiety. And but Srila Prabhupada says here that a devotee does not waste valuable time discriminating Brahman from non-Brahman, because he knows perfectly well that everything is the property of the Lord, and so that the devotee tries to engage everything in his service. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhi Goswami writes one verse, Anasaktasya Vishayam Yatarham Upayunjata, that one who rejects everything without understanding its relationship with the Lord is incomplete in his renunciation. And but one who accepts everything, understanding how it's Krishna's property, he is rightly renounced. Because what has he renounced? He's renounced the enjoying mentality, that this is meant for my own pleasure. And actually, a devotee, he completely hates the thought of taking Krishna's property and enjoying it for himself. He's totally, above that. It's the last thing he would ever want to do. It's just like, like the servant of a great king, who's very much devoted to his king. If he knows, if he uses the king's, the king's plates and forks to ease himself, that he'll be in big trouble, and he would never think of doing such a thing. And so, if many people argue about what is better, capitalism or communism, property laws, and many others say let's kind of just live together. Everything is everyone's property, and it's also no one's property. Or in capitalism, you have great competition to be on top. But both of these, because they're without a conception of Krishna as the supreme proprietor, they're both ultimately useless and futile. Because in both of those situations, one is overcome with a sense of lording it over the material nature and using for his own purposes. And so Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita are Krishna's ultimate or great source of mercy that he gives to us. Because how could we know how everything is related to Krishna, just by looking around us? Actually, we see in the second canto here, like a great description of kind of the creation of the material universe, primary and secondary creation. In the third canto, we hear a lot about the 24 material elements and Sankhya philosophy, and just how complex this material universe is. In order to maintain it, Krishna has the Purusha avatars, where Mahavishnu is lying down, and this material universe is so large, Mahavishnu is so large that just in the span of his one breath, his one exhale is like the entire lifetime of all the universes. It's unfathomable. But all of this, all of the material kind of energy, it's all in order to make us forget Krishna. It's in order to facilitate our independent desire to forget Krishna and to live try to live separately from him, although we can never be separated from Krishna. And so by this you can understand that it's actually very difficult to forget Krishna, because Krishna has to make all of this, the senses, sense objects, and so the process of Krishna consciousness is, as Srila Prabhupada would say, it's very, very simple. It's also very difficult for those who make it difficult, and it's all up to our free will, as Tatashta Shakti. We can either take shelter of Maya, of material world, the false shelter of this material world, and try to squeeze some enjoyment out of it, and just keep on doing that over and over again, chewing the chewed, squeezing the squeezed, and just meet with suffering, birth after birth. But after some time, after being, crushed by Maya, meeting with failure after failure, the living being might develop some intelligence and might actually use his free will to search out actually what is the reason for this material world. Who am I? Why am I suffering? And in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says that actually human life begins when one begins to question, why am I suffering, although I don't want to? And so that person is very much favorable towards understanding God. He's inquisitive, one of the four pious people who approach Krishna. And if a person like that reads a book like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or just has a moment's association with a devotee of the Lord, then he will start to understand actually what is the supreme shelter. He will understand what is the perfection of my life. How can I perfectly engage my senses? That he'll understand that the perfection of, for example, hearing is to hear the glories of the Lord. The perfection of seeing is to see the deity form of the Lord in the temple, to see the devotees. And in this way, he'll begin to use his free will to change his habits in life, change his perspective and outlook on the material world and on people and on devotees, and he'll be able to discriminate between devotees and non-devotees, and he'll eventually learn how to become dependent on Krishna and take shelter of the spiritual energy rather than the material energy. And when he reaches his perfection, he becomes a great devotee who is described by this verse. Avoiding everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And so the pure devotee is, as this Shukadeva Goswami says, he's in absolute harmony with the Lord. And that means he knows what is the inbuilt purpose of this world, and he's in harmony with Krishna's purpose in this world. Although he finds himself in the material world, in the prison house of the material world with the material body, the devotee can understand that his purpose is to serve the Lord by first of all saving himself, and then helping others to also become Krishna conscious, and to enlighten them about what is the purpose of the world, what is the purpose of the Lord, and what are we meant to do. And Gauranga Prabhu yesterday was talking about really one kind of very important concept, that it's only due to Maya's influence that we see the gifts in our life as burdens, that we begin to kind of lose appreciation for the great things which we've received, coming to Krishna consciousness, devotee association, the holy name, and the opportunity to become fully perfect. We might not kind of appreciate those things due to Maya's influence, causing us to doubt the effectiveness of these things, to doubt devotees, and he said it's due to Maya's influence that we might develop an offensive kind of disposition towards devotees. And this doubting process is like the greatest weapon of Maya. That, you know, one has come to Krishna consciousness, and he has all of Prabhupada's books, attending all the classes, you know, associating with advanced devotees. You know, Krishna has equipped him with everything he needs to kind of become fully perfected in devotional service. But just because of doubt, it may all be destroyed. He may lose it all. Krishna says that for the doubting soul, there's peace neither in this world or the next. And so, if one, you know, for example, if one doubts the Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, one is losing their chance to kind of find the treasure. You know, if you doubt the treasure map, then how will you ever find that treasure? You'll just remain lost. So Krishna's ultimate mercy is giving us, you know, these Vedic literatures. It's like, you know, he's not put us up a creek without a paddle. Or, you know, sometimes people who go cave exploring, they'll tie a rope to the outside of the cave, a very super long rope, and then they'll explore the cave holding that rope in it, you know, so they can find their way out. So Krishna's giving us this, you know, this rope to hold on to. You know, we may find ourselves very deeply entangled within this kind of material atmosphere. So many material desires, anarthas are stopping us at every moment. But we have this rope that we can, you know, we can depend on. It's our saving force, our lifeline. And one who's in the cave he might be in complete darkness. You know, he might sometimes have to swim underwater, or, you know, go over like, you know, very sharp rocks. But one who has faith in that rope, he'll know that I'll be able to come out, you know, into the sunshine one day. And so, yeah, we should have that hope. Those of us who are, you know, practicing devotees, just starting out, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say that for a devotee, his path is ridden with thorns, because Krishna is always trying to test him and, you know, make him into a perfect devotee, and really test it. Is this actually something that you want or not? And so we have faith in verses like this, that, you know, we should avoid everything godless, and we should know that the only goal of life is to you know, serve Krishna. Krishna is my only goal. If we have that kind of mentality, then we can be assured of being successful, and that's, you know, guaranteed by our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. So yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Does anybody have any like questions, comments, corrections?
Thank you. It was a very nice class, many wonderful points. You were saying how the devotee has that aversion to ever trying to enjoy Krishna's energy for himself. And it just reminded me of that pastime of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was a small child, and then there was that basket of mangoes in the house, and he, you know, when was going through the house, he grabbed a mango and started to eat it, and his father said, "Oh, you are taking the mango before it's been offered to Bhagavan?" And he was a small child, and he felt so bad to do that he'd, you know, violated his loving relationship with Krishna. He's an acharya. He said, "I will never eat another mango for the rest of my life." So anyway, that was kind of a graphic example of that attitude. Thank you.
There's good mangoes in India.
In Bengal.
We often hear, like, growing up in Christianity and everything, there's like a big emphasis on like the duality of like God and Satan, and like avoiding evil things and sin, you know, like, and this this verse is also speaking about that, avoiding things which are godless. But it also talks about how everything is in relation with the Lord. Prabhupada talks about how nothing is separate from the Lord in the purport. So what is it? If everything is related to the Lord, then what does it mean to avoid something which is godless if nothing is separate from God? So what is the godless thing that we avoid?
Yeah. In Sri Upanishad, it's mentioned that one should cultivate knowledge of both nescience and transcendental knowledge side by side. Nescience meaning, that which is kind of material knowledge, and also those things which kind of entangle us further. So one should avoid what is godless, but one should know what is godless. Those things which are godless are mostly. I was thinking of nectar of instruction that atyahara priyasascha prajapo niyamagraha janasangascha loyam cha. That these things, like people who are averse to the service of the Lord, that's something godless. Of course, these people, they are in relationship with the Lord, but they have the wrong mentality about how to exist in the world. And we were also talking about earlier about yesterday the urges of like the senses, that by satisfying those to a great degree, that would be considered godless. But there are other urges which we should satisfy, like the urge to use the restroom, the urge to go to sleep. These are like okay to satisfy those urges. So there's always like a way to engage something in the service of the Lord, or to engage it in the service of selfish desires. But ultimately that free will is given to us by Krishna, and so in one sense nothing is godless, in the sense that nothing is without relationship to Krishna, but in another sense there's a godless mentality to kind of use those things, or a godless mentality to adopt. Yeah, because in Christianity it's almost like Satan is also another god. Like you have God and like another evil god. So it doesn't make sense. In that sense, there's no like absolute truth. It means there's two relative truths, God and Satan. But of course we understand that Satan is Maya, and Maya is Krishna's energy, and Maya is just kind of like the prison warden, trying to test us and to kind of keep us in a conditioned state of mind if we're not sincere about devotional service. But those who are sincere can cross beyond. Does anyone else have
the
anything
main
to add about that?
godlessness would be the sinful activity. Therefore we have the four regular things. Prabhupada said that our strength is chanting 16 rounds and following four regular principles. If we don't do that, then we become weak. Drift away from Krishna.
The Mayavadis, that their whole philosophy is everything is one, everything is God, so there's no such thing as sin, pretty much. Like, if you really boil it down, then there's no such thing as sin or anything. There's nothing separate from God. When I was in college, I took a class on Hinduism, and we were learning about this Vishishtadvaitavad, and there was one like teacher of it or something. I don't know who it is. I'd have to do some research. But he was challenged by someone that if everything is God, then that stool which is sitting in the street is also God, and the food that you're eating is also God. So why are you eating that food, and why aren't you eating the stool? And then just to prove a point, that Mayavadi ate the stool, and like was like glorified because of that.
Oh my God.
That's the extent of madness.
Yeah, he's start eating stool.
It's amazing.
Just to prove a point.
Or like I remember in San Luis Obispo, Jagat Trata was arguing with this one like Indian boy who was into Mayavad and said like, okay, well if you and I are the same, then why don't you like give me $20 from your wallet?
Yeah,
And I
that's
think-
my wallet in your pocket.
Yeah,
My money.
I think he actually gave it, but then later he wanted it back because it was his, not ours.
I think Prabhupada was at MIT or some very prestigious university. And again, an Indian student was arguing with Prabhupada, everything is one, everything is not one. And finally Prabhupada grabbed his shirt and said, if everything is one, why are you wearing this shirt instead of a cotton ball? Why should you wear, cotton ball, cotton shirt? Why wear the shirt? Just wear a cotton ball. Something like that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it. Right? Jayadvaita Swami got a little more graphic. It was questions and answers in New York. I think it was in New York or LA, I forget which one. The Jayadvaita Swami is very cutting, very straightforward. And so the guy said, everything's one, Swami. And Jayadvaita said, everything's not one. Everything is simultaneously one and different. And the guy again, blah, 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 blah. But everything is finally one. If you put, and Jayadvaita Swami again explained very nicely, philosophically, for the benefit of the audience. And the guy says, yeah. But finally, when you really, everything is one. Jayadvaita Swami says, if everything is one, then eat stool. That was his final argument.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
On that note,
Jonathan? Anything? Okay. Contra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.